Everybody. Hey, now we're recording. Welcome. Today is, what is today? March 31st, last day of this amazing month of March 2020. This has been one for the record books, I tell you what. And today's topic on the Diabetes Reversal webinar is stress and anxiety. And we will be taking your questions. If you guys can, in the chat, say hello and tell us how your stress level is doing. We want to get some feedback from you guys and hear from you. Tell us where you're from. Tell us how your stress level is. Right in the chat box over here. I'm going to put my stress level. There we go. Let's hear from you guys. So we got a lot of people hopping on. Last week we had a little bit of a technical glitch. Zoom did not send out the email to remind everybody to join us. So we didn't have nearly as many people as we usually do. So good to see everybody hopping on today. Dr. Saunders, without further ado, welcome. Good morning. Take it away.
Thank you. Welcome. Today is about stress, and this is a really important topic. I can't emphasize that, we talk about food, we talk about how important vitamins and supplements and people pay like tons of money for getting the right nutrition in their bodies, and people are exercising and going to the gym. And I saw a meme yesterday of a woman sleeping on her treadmill, and said, well, my doctor said I should spend more time on the treadmill. So, because usually treadmills are used to hang clothes on instead of actually walking on them, but she needed to spend more time on it. Anyway, so we do all of this stuff and spend all this money to improve our health, but stress is 10 times more important than all of those other things put together. So this is, I would say, the most important topic we've ever discussed for diabetes and for health in general.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good to know. I mean, heck, we're going for it all right now. So a great day to join this last day of March. Man, coronavirus, it kind of took over the news a little bit this last month. I mean, you can't go anywhere without hearing about it, people talking about it. It's on social media, it's on the news, it's in conversation of people that you're talking to on the phone or from 6 feet away if you're lucky enough to see people in person besides your own family. So these are epic times we're in. I think, and I've talked to my dad, and he's 84, and he's never been in anything like this. I think he said when he was a baby, something right before he was born, they had something like this. But yeah,
in 1918, influenza.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, congratulations, everybody. You made it through the month of March. Like, that's not everyone can say that. And
hey, tomorrow's April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
See what happens.
That should be interesting. It's kind of a weird day to make jokes, I guess. So, but like, that's part of stress relief, is you got to have fun, like, no matter where you're at. I have a friend, he passed away now, but he was an amazing guy. His name is Sean, and he was 3 feet tall. He had a rare disease, and I don't remember what it's called, but his bones broke all the time when he was younger, like a couple hundred times. And he actually worked in the White House at one time for, I think, President Clinton. But he gave a speech that I'll never forget. And he talked about how in every situation, there's always something funny. Like, so no matter what you're going through, you can ask yourself, like, what's funny about this? I mean, even in the most horrible times, it's like, you just have to find, there's something, like, you just got to shake your head and, like, wow, like, this is amazing. And so, I don't know. I just thought that was appropriate for these times we're in. So what do we do here, Scott? Talk about stress relief.
Okay. Well, the reason stress is so important for diabetics is because the stress hormones, primarily cortisol, make us resistant to insulin. And the problem with diabetes is insulin resistance. So if that stress is going to make it worse, then, and sometimes a lot worse. I had a woman, this is actually this is a true story. I was working at the county of Santa Barbara, and Julie was coming in on a regular basis, and her blood sugars were terrible. It was always, way over 200, sometimes 300, 400, but always high. So I gave her medications, didn't go down. I put her on 3 medications, and her blood sugars did not go down. She could not get under 200. So then I sent her to the premier diabetes specialist in the world. This is like the Sansom Clinic diabetologist. And that's all she does is diabetes. And she came back on 200 units of insulin. And for those of you who don't know insulin, the average amount a pancreas puts out would be about 10 units a day, maybe 20 units on a high level. And she was on 200, so more than 10 times the usual amount of insulin. And 4 medications she was taking, all for diabetes, and her blood sugar was never below 200. It was always high. And so I called the diabetologist at Sansom. I'm like, okay, Julie's here with me. Her blood sugars are always over 200. Is she taking her insulin? Yeah. Taking her medications? Yeah. She's lying. There's no way. There's no way. She's lying. I'm like, Julie, are you serious? Are you really doing this? I'm doing everything right. I swear I'm doing everything right. And then one day, but we just kept going, and her blood sugar was always high. One day she called me a month or so later, and she said, I feel horrible. I feel awful. I'm just like fatigued. I can't get out of it. And I said, what's your blood sugar? And she said, 60 or something like that. And I said, Julie, stop the insulin. Get off the medications. This is not good. So her blood sugar was low. So then I said, keep track of your blood sugar. Don't take any medications and come in and see me. So a week later, she comes in, her blood sugar was normal the whole time, perfectly normal. Like 70 to 90, like perfectly normal. Like she didn't have diabetes. And I'm like, okay, what did you do? Did you take any other medications? Are you taking anything? No. Any herbs, any supplements, did you change your diet? No dietary changes, nothing. And I'm like, well, what happened? She goes, nothing. I didn't change anything. So we found out, after discussion, we figured out that her daughter moved out. That it was just she and her daughter in the house, and her daughter, who was in her late teens, they were always fighting. It was a constant battle. And then her daughter would run away from home, and she'd be like, oh my God, I'm wrong. There was always this constant battle going on. And then her daughter moves out of the house, and all of a sudden they're best friends. Daughter calls, hi mom, how you doing? And they're best friends because they're not living in the same house. And her stress went away, and her insulin, she didn't need insulin. She didn't even have diabetes. All she had was stress. Wow. Stress-induced diabetes. Wow. That's all it was. Needed no medications at all. And now she has normal stress. She didn't lose any weight or anything. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about how blood sugar levels, like in the morning, sometimes can be higher. For different reasons, but we also talked about blood sugars just from stress alone can be increased, and so
that's an interesting point that you make there, because the greatest stress we have is morning stress. We wake up in the morning and dread the day. I gotta go to work today. And in fact, heart attacks mostly happen on Monday mornings between 5 and 10 a.m. There's a peak, a spike in heart attacks, which is really interesting. And they tend to go down on Fridays. Friday afternoons, there's a valley. Stress also induces heart attacks.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. So a little, excuse me, a little housekeeping here. Johanna asked a great question. What is the website for our YouTube to view past presentations? And if you go to, so you can either go to YouTube and just search Barton Publishing Webinars, or just go to bartonwebinar.com and we have a link right on that page. And so bartonwebinar.com, and that has a link to our Facebook page as well. We have the 610 reset, which we can talk about that as well for stress relief, the importance of when you go to bed and things like that. So and then let me just give you a couple comments here, Scott, that people are sharing. So stress level is high in South Carolina. Not much stress from Matt in Illinois. Shoba said his level is medium. Pam loves my background, so thank you, Pam. I thought that would be fun to add a little tropical stress relief behind me here. I am at home, but Janice said stress level is okay, but this sure has been a strange time, that's for sure. And Cynthia from North Carolina, stress level is up, but not half to my max, so that's good. And Jane said stress levels have improved ever since this whole business of COVID-19 and self-isolation started. Depression is lifted since a real threat was present, so that's good to hear. So yeah, we got people kind of all over the place, and but mostly good, so that's good. And yeah, so get into a little bit more, like, how does stress do that? Like, what's going on in our bodies?
When we're stressed, we produce a hormone, a stress hormone. Well, a lot of them actually, but the primary one is cortisol. And cortisol is the wake-up hormone. It's the morning hormone. It's the one that gets us started and gets us going. And it initiates a type of metabolism called catabolic metabolism. And the catabolic metabolism, catabolic literally means breaking down. And the catabolic metabolism is when you're awake and you're alert and you're doing stuff. And you have to think of it like driving your car. When you're driving your car, you could be as careful as you want on the road and you're still breaking down your car. Your tires are wearing out, your seats are wearing out, your steering wheel is wearing out, everything in the car is wearing out, the engine's getting hot. That's like inflammation in the body, right? And you're making all these toxins, your oil is building up grit and stuff. And all of this is happening because you're driving your car. Even if you're super careful, it doesn't matter. It's still breaking down the car. Well, that's exactly like our bodies. When we're in catabolic mode, we're like just going, we're doing stuff, we're seeing the world, we're doing our work, it's not that we have to have a lot of stress on us, but because we're actively doing things, we're creating inflammation, oxygen-free radicals, we're using a lot of energy. So for all those reasons, that catabolic state is breaking down our bodies, just like you're breaking down your car when you're driving. And that breaking down is everything. When you lift something heavy, you tear a muscle, you literally tear muscle fibers. They are torn apart. When you're walking down, you don't realize it, but you're making little micro fractures in your bones. And there's fractures all over your bones. And all of that has to be repaired. If it's not repaired, then you end up with all kinds of things like having to get joint replacements and having to get, and getting stress fractures in your bones and having rotator cuff tears in your shoulder. And all of this is because you're just driving your car and you never give it a rest. You never take it in for an oil change. You never fix anything. And so it's just breaking down. Our bodies can rebuild every night. We actually get to rebuild, and our muscles rebuild stronger. Where we tore muscle fibers, they heal even stronger than they were. Where the bones have those little micro fractures all over your bones, they heal stronger than they were, as long as you aren't taking any of those dumb osteoporosis medications. Those are horrible. Don't ever take one. And so all of that stress is repaired every night when we're in anabolic mode. But if we're really stressed out and have high cortisol levels, then we never get into anabolic mode, and we don't repair and we don't rebuild. And so we're always breaking down little by little, breaking down. And people say, oh, I'm just getting old. But it's not just getting old, it's breaking down and not repairing, really is what it is. So when we have a lot of stress, then we're just always breaking down. That's the real problem. So getting rid of that stress and allowing relaxation and allowing anabolic mode. We talked about anabolic mode. That's the 610 reset thing that we'll talk a little bit more about. So that's why stress kills, and cancer comes from stress, and diabetes comes from stress, and heart disease, and strokes, and all of that. We talk about blood pressure. Blood pressure is just a symptom. It's a tiny symptom. It's not really the cause. And you could look at the bigger picture is stress.
Yeah. So can you talk about, like, this last month, especially the news, the media, where all you're hearing about is the pandemic, the coronavirus, COVID-19, all these people dying, all these new cases. Like, what do you recommend to people for how much of that to take in?
Okay. Dang, we talked about this last time, and I was downplaying it quite a lot, saying, hey, don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's a cold, it's the common cold. It's a coronavirus. We've known about coronaviruses for years and years, and it's not bad. And people, a few people kind of got upset and said, well, you're downplaying. This is really important, and it's really bad, and people are dying. So I don't want to say that it's not a bad virus. Okay, it's worldwide. It's affecting a lot of people, and a lot of people are dying. The people who are dying are the people who are susceptible. They have problems. 99% of people who are dying have some, what we call a comorbid condition. The average age of those who die in Italy is like 81. In New York, it's 84. We're talking about people who are already in a place of they already have what we call comorbid, but they're already weakened in some way. Children, there have been maybe 1 or 2 deaths, and that's debatable. There was one that was reported as, oh, this child died of COVID-19. It turns out that there were other issues really that the child died of. So I'm not too sure about that. So if you look at it, you know what? A lot of people are going to get sick, and it's going to affect almost everybody in the world. But it's not something to worry about. It's not like the 1918 flu epidemic where, if you got sick, you were pretty much mostly going to die. This, 90% of children get it and don't even know they have it. And young adults, kind of similar. They get sick, and some people get pretty sick. I had one person who was sick, and his oxygen level, I have a pulse oximeter, his oxygen level dropped. And he was really coughing a lot and pretty sick for about 4 or 5 days. And then he got better, and he's all better now. So the stress and worry is way outside of the reality of this illness. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, New York City is getting hit the hardest for sure, but like that is probably the highest stress city in our country, if not the world. I mean everybody is on like go all the time. It's insane. The horns are blaring, car horns, and just interesting. I don't know if there's a connection there or not, but that plus there's so many people there on top of each other, so it's probably spreading faster, I would imagine. So you touched on the comorbidity, and this is a serious thing with people with diabetes, because diabetes is definitely one of those factors that if you have type 2 or type 1, I suppose, but type 2 especially, like that is a very serious condition that, if you don't do something about it, you're much more likely to, I mean, your risks are far greater for something like coronavirus or influenza or a cold or anything really, right?
Yeah, and especially the coronavirus. If there's any problem with the lungs, primarily, people with diabetes often have heart disease, which can affect their circulation. And so, when there's any compromise there, then adding to that stress. And if you think about it, we're talking about stress in illness. Whether it's coronavirus or influenza or cold or any kind of infection or illness is a stress on the body. And if you already are on the borderline and you add to that stress, it could put you over the edge to the point where you get really super ill or even die from it. So that's what the comorbidity thing is you're on the edge and you can't tolerate any more stress. The old idea of you load up your camel with straw, and you take just one more straw and put it on the camel, and it breaks the camel's back. The straw that broke the camel's back is that one thing that it's not heavy by itself, but you're already overloaded. So one of the things we want to talk about is when you have diabetes, how do you unload so that you can tolerate stress? Stress tolerance is really, because you can't avoid stress. You just have to be able to tolerate it.
Yeah. I was actually recording a new video on immunity the other day, yesterday actually, thanks to some information you gave. But like the 3 biggest things to avoid, which is for your immune system, but also stress. And number 1 on the list is sugar. But number 2 is alcohol. And we haven't talked a lot about alcohol, but when I was researching this, alcohol impairs the function of immune cells in the lungs and upper respiratory system specifically, which leads to an increased risk for pneumonia, tuberculosis, and acute respiratory distress syndrome. So I thought that was interesting. Like, if there's ever a time to avoid alcohol, it's now, right?
Oh yeah, alcohol. Sugar, alcohol. That's that's big. And interestingly, ibuprofen. There are several reports that ibuprofen, because it inhibits the inflammatory response in a certain way, it prevents the ability to get rid of the virus. I don't have any science on that. There was only some reports from China that people who didn't take ibuprofen fared better than people who did. Another one is cortisone. If you have a puffer, an inhaler, and you have like asthma or COPD or something, and you're using a steroid inhaler, that steroid is cortisone. Cortisone suppresses your immune system and increases your risk of getting pneumonia. So that may be a big risk factor too, is if you're using a steroid inhaler, you're much more likely to get a bad outcome from the coronavirus.
So do allergies cause problems too? Like, I was allergic to cats. I'm still allergic to cats, but not as much as I used to be. But my mom she loved cats. So we always had 1 or 2 or 3 cats in the house, which made for a very reactive environment for me. So I was getting, allergy shots when I was in 6th grade, I think, 7th grade. And so, but I got pneumonia and bronchitis several times as a kid. And I'm sure it's because I was weakened from those allergies. And maybe the allergies were just a symptom of a deeper issue. I don't know. But can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, if you have allergies, then there's a reaction going on in your bronchi because you're breathing in these allergens and you're creating a reaction, um, which prevents you from fighting off other infections very easily. Now, that may not be the cause of bronchitis because you probably would have normally gotten maybe a mild bronchitis before, but it became more serious because you already had this inflammation. You just added on top of it. It's kind of like you already have this level of stress and you just add a little bit more and it makes it much worse than it normally would have been.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably more the case.
You know, you're talking about ibuprofen, and I heard somebody yesterday, I think it was Dr. Peter Attia, talking about, I think they were leukenes. Is that leukeine markers?
Yeah, leukotrienes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And there was something about the connection with 3 certain markers of those types, that if you have higher elevated levels of those, then you are more susceptible to the virus. And there's an underlying chronic stress disorder, I believe it was. And so like there was some, and I was just thinking about like ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory. So, but inflammation is a huge factor in this. And I think that's really what, you know, sugar and alcohol are both inflammatory and other things. So, and those cause stress. So I just kind of wondered if the ibuprofen was more of a, maybe not a direct connection, but just because people who are inflamed take, take ibuprofen. So maybe they're already in that risk category. I don't know.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know either. I don't I have enough understanding. I just, a couple of reports that I've read that those taking ibuprofen had worse outcomes.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions that have come in here, and all right. So Iwa, this is Terry and Eve. Can synechroma have any side effects when taking meds? Specific meds are glyburide and irbesartan.
Yeah.
Not familiar with
Irbesartan and glyburide. Yeah, irbesartan is a blood pressure medication, and glyburide is a diabetes medication. Yes, it's possible only because as your cinnamon decreases your insulin resistance, then you have you can lower your blood sugar, and glyburide is one of those medications that can make your blood sugar go too low. There aren't very many of the diabetes medications that can cause hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, but glyburide is one of them. So if you're taking synechroma and your blood sugar starts going down naturally, then the glyburide can actually push it too low. So yes, that's a possibility. Otherwise, no. I mean, as far as drug interactions, there wouldn't be any.
So a shameless plug, I got synechroma on my background now, if people can see that. I'm showing up or not, but so let's talk about this a little bit. So synechroma, so how does somebody work with their doctor to reduce medications? Because yeah, I mean, if they're on these medications and then synechroma helps to lower their blood sugar, then it would be better to get off of, reduce your medication, right? And so how does somebody work with their doctor to do that, especially in this time when doctors are probably busier than usual?
Okay, it's great. Actually, it's easier than ever now because the federal government, the president got up and he said, okay, doctors need to be able to talk to their patients in whatever means necessary. So we're going to suspend the HIPAA laws. HIPAA is the privacy laws of privacy for medical information, and allow you to use any means necessary. So if you can call your doctor on the phone, you can do Skype, you can do FaceTime, you can contact your doctor any way you can, which actually makes it easier in some ways. For me, people are calling me, and then so the doctor that has more ability to manage or consult with patients, because it's just like an office visit, and it counts as an office visit.
Mm.
So what you can do now is you can contact your doctor more frequently. And as your blood sugar starts going down when you're doing the diabetes solution kit, adding synachroma, and your blood sugar starts going lower, you work with your doctor, you call and go, okay, my blood sugar is going down. I'm in the 100s, I'm in the 150s. Should I be off the medication? No, not yet. Okay, I'm down in the 120s. My blood sugar. Oh, okay, my morning blood sugar was 70. Oh, you better get off the medication. So your doctor will tell you when to get off the medications and which ones to get off of first as you're reporting and just saying, this is where I am and what's my next step. And the doctor will help you. That's the easiest way. And every doctor knows how to do that, knows what to do as your blood sugar is going down.
Okay.
And most of them just love it. They're just like, wow, you're doing a great, they'll be really supportive and help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. That's good to hear. And Dr. Saunders, I want to let you give a little bit of a plug for you doing telemedicine for people, because our disclaimer here is that, any advice here is for the most part, not individualistic. It's nothing for you to go and do something on your own saying like, well, Dr. Saunders told me to do this. I mean, it's really, no, you talk to your doctor about that specifically, because everybody has different things going on. But you do offer, like we used to call it dial-a-doc, but telemedicine. And, especially now that people are staying home because of the COVID-19 and all of that. But, tell us about your services. If people want to get a hold of you and want to have you as their doctor, how do they go about doing that?
Well, so in my practice, I have a membership practice. Everybody says it's like concierge. In membership practice, I charge $49 a month, and I just take care of people, whatever it takes. So people have my cell phone number, and they're members, and they call if they need to. I get a lot of texts and a lot of emails, and I answer the emails and help people through whatever they're going through. During this time, what I've done in my practice, the people who are members, I send out an email and I said, look, if you have anyone who's having a hard time getting a hold of their doctor or something, then you can give them my number and I can consult. And I've done a few prescriptions for people who weren't able to get their doctor and they had prescriptions running out. And so I've been able to do that for them. So if anybody feels like they aren't getting the help they need and would like to do a consultation and talk, they can call the office and set up an appointment. And the office number, Andy and Mariah take care of that. And that's an 805-688-7171. And they can then talk with Andy and Mariah and get set up for a consultation. Andy and Mariah, if you have insurance, then they take your insurance, because the phone calls now, we weren't before, but now we bill them the insurance. And so Andy and Mariah take care of all of that.
Great. All right. So 805-688-7171. That's Dr. Saunders' office number. I put it in the chat here too, but for people that are watching this later, yeah, call his office and set up a consultation with him. And I'll just vouch for you. You've been my family doctor for, close to 10 years now. And man, you've saved us a lot of time and money, given us great information. So you've been a huge help. You answer the phone right away, text messages, emails. So you're awesome, Dr. Saunders, and I highly recommend you to everyone. So
thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. A couple more questions have come in here. Let me find them here. Okay, so Pam, you asked about ibuprofen. It twanged out a little bit, she said, when you said that. If you could just talk about that again real quick. Should people avoid ibuprofen right now?
I don't know for sure. I put it out there. There's been a couple of reports that ibuprofen, for some reason that I don't understand, might cause worse outcomes if you have the coronavirus. I don't know why that would be. Ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory, and the primary problem with coronavirus is this the amount of inflammation. It's like suddenly there's a whole bunch of inflammation in the lungs, and it fills up the lungs with fluid. And I don't know why ibuprofen would not inhibit that or make that worse somehow. But there have been a couple of reports that I've read, and I don't know why, and I don't see any science behind the why.
Okay. Sir William asks about cannabis. Does cannabis reduce stress or add to it?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, no. Cannabis is highly variable in the individual and depending on the reason for the stress. So when there's nervous system disorders, like there's a excessive amount of nervous system stimulation, cannabis, especially CBD. Now there's two different types of cannabis. One is THC, and that's the marijuana plant. That's the getting high. That's the smoking a joint. That's all of that stuff. And then there's the other type of cannabis, which is the hemp. And hemp oil is CBD oil. And that is actually, you don't get high from it. It has a lot of the benefits without any of the risks. It can lower stress. It can improve sleep. It can decrease pain. But it's not like a cure-all. It's not a panacea. It doesn't fix everything. If you have a nerve pain from excessive nerve stimulation, then it tends to calm the nerves and relax them and decrease the amount of pain you have. So if you can't sleep because of this excessive nerve stimulation, it tends to relax that. For children with seizure disorders, a specific seizure disorder, they give cannabis oil or a CBD oil in huge doses, like 400 milligrams. Whereas, most you go to the store, you're getting 15 or 20 milligrams or 30. I've seen people with pain take as much as 90 milligrams. Well, they're giving little kids with seizure disorders 400 milligrams, and it stops the seizures because it stops that excessive stimulation. So I don't recommend the THC because it directly stimulates the nerves and you develop tolerance to it. And that's where people get things like paranoia and psychosis, where you never see that with CBD oil. CBD oil does not directly stimulate the nerves. It increases the amount of endocannabinoids, the chemicals in your own body that you're making yourself. So that's the one I usually recommend, CBD oil. Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great answer. All right. Cheryl, our amazing customer support specialist, said that a customer asked if synochroma can cause excess urine. Is that true?
Wow. Let me think of what's in it. Vitamin D.
Cinnamon, chromium, vanadium, selenium.
Chromium, vanadium, selenium, vitamin D. Okay. I don't know why that should cause excessive. What could cause more urination? Well, if your blood sugar is higher, then you let out sugar in the urine, and that creates more urine. That's a possibility, but I don't think synochroma does that. If somebody's sensitive to cinnamon, like they have some kind of sensitivity, and there's a whole bunch of types, not like allergic reactions, although that's possible too, then those inflammatory mediators collect in the urine, and they can create more urination just because it stimulates the bladder to contract more, and so you feel like you have to pee all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's a possibility. Other than that, I don't see anything in there that could cause more urination.
Yeah, that's probably pretty rare. I've never heard that before. So out of the thousands of people that use it regularly, it's the first time I've heard that question. So, all right. Johanna asks, why is it bad to have grapefruit if you are on metformin?
Oh, well, that's interesting. There is in our livers the ability to process different chemicals. And there are an incredible number of different types of enzymes, like hundreds of different enzymes that process different things. And they're called the cytochrome P450 system. It's a whole system of detox mechanisms. And your liver's ability to detox metformin is inhibited by a chemical that's in grapefruit. So grapefruit inhibits this certain enzyme in the cytochrome P450 system that processes metformin. So if you eat a bunch of grapefruit, your metformin level can go up. And that's true with several different drugs, like all of the statins do that too. You shouldn't be eating a lot of grapefruit if you're taking statins.
Interesting. I'd never heard of that before. Yeah, very cool. All right. So somebody had a question about the cost of Synachroma and that it's more expensive than metformin. So I'm assuming with copays, that reduces the cost for people with metformin. Do you know what the cost of metformin is typically without any type of insurance or copay?
Well, metformin's been generic for more than 10 years, so it's pretty cheap. You can, in fact, with metformin, you can get it from Walmart, like a 3-month supply for, I think they're on like $20 for a 3-month supply. It's just incredibly cheap now. Yeah. Because it's been generic for a little while.
So this brings up an interesting discussion point, because metformin might be cheaper upfront, but what can it do to your health? Like if you had to choose between metformin and Synachroma, let's say it's an ideal world and that was a simple choice, but Synachroma costs a little bit more. What are the risks and factors to consider?
Well, if you understand what they do, metformin is I don't have a problem with metformin. It's as a temporary kind of help to, what it does is it blocks or poisons the mitochondria so you can't use sugar very efficiently. It increases something called cyclic AMP that tells your body, oh no, I'm not burning sugar, I need to start burning fat. So it tricks your body into burning fat. Which is actually really good for diabetes, right? That's what you want to do, burn fat. Mm-hmm. But because of the way it works, in terms of blocking the proper use of the mitochondria, the sugar in the mitochondria, it's not a good long-term solution. It doesn't fix the problem. What it does is kind of suppresses it, kind of like putting a Band-Aid over it or getting a temporary fix, using some baling wire to fix it. It doesn't really repair it. Whereas the Synachroma, because it gives you the chromium, vanadium, the cinnamon is really more like the metformin to kind of help the mitochondria function better. But vitamin D, some of the other things in there actually make you more sensitive to insulin and allow normal good functioning of the body instead of this temporary fix kind of thing. So I would prefer the Synachroma.
Yeah. There's some minerals that you're not getting normally in your diet, like the selenium. And so what else was I going to say? Totally had a brain fart there, but yeah, that happens. So Leslie posted that according to drugs.com, metformin is $12 for 14 tablets. And so I'm assuming for $24, you could get a month's supply if you're taking one a day, but I know some people are on more than that as well. But it's really not treating or helping the root cause of things. And And the other, other thing, that's what I was going to say about synochroma is like right now, when you want your immune system healthy, vitamin D3 is one of the best things that you've talked about that just really can help you. Like if you were to be in contact with coronavirus, it would, if your vitamin D levels are optimal, like it would make it for the most part, like you just maybe get a little sniffle or something or a cold for a little while, as opposed to potentially being hospitalized. I mean, that's like what I can't say that, I'm not a doctor, and you probably can't either, to people just listening generally, but like it's seriously, if your immune system is healthy, that's what your immune system does, is it fights off and handles pathogens like viruses and bacteria.
So that's the really important thing that we're talking about with stress. And that is, if your immune system functions well, you can never get sick. You'll never get a flu. You'll never get cancer. You'll never get any autoimmune diseases. You'll never get any inflammatory conditions, because the immune system, when it functions right, correctly, well, then it's an amazingly efficient and effective system. And when it's not, then it doesn't. So stress, that's why, what I was saying in the very beginning, stress is the most important thing. And I think what we should do in our last minutes here is discuss how do we lower stress? How do we improve our function and not be stressed? Well, you can't avoid stress, but what you can do is manage stress. And so one of the things that is very important for getting stress tolerance, a wider stress tolerance where you can handle stressful things better, is our 6-10 reset program. And that is no food after 6, go to sleep by 10, and eat breakfast in the morning. There's actually 3 things. And the reason it's reset is because that's like when your computer's acting up and it's not functioning well, you're all frustrated at it, you call IT and say, my computer's all messed up. And they go, what's the first thing they do? Okay, shut it off and turn it back on again, and then call me back. And you know what? Turning it off and turning it on again fixes everything. Well, you turn off your adrenal glands, all those stress hormones, whenever you're not eating, when your stomach's empty. That means nothing in your stomach. That means you're not drinking water. That means you're not sipping water. I have people do that. Like, I tell them, okay, no eating. And they're like sipping water all day long. I go, no, just take a drink of water once in a while when you're thirsty, and that's all. When they're fasting. Because when the stomach's empty, you make a hormone called ghrelin that initiates the repair of your intestines, initiates all of the anabolic hormones. I talked about catabolic when you're driving your car. Well, anabolic is when you're fixing everything. And you can't fix everything until you make this hormone called ghrelin, which comes from having an empty stomach. It actually is made by your stomach when your stomach's empty. And so that is really important. So the 6-10 reset is you're going to bed every night on an empty stomach. And what that does is at night, while you're not doing anything, while you're sleeping, you're repairing everything. And why do you have to go to bed at 10? Because that's when you make that growth hormone. The human growth hormone is the anabolic hormone that initiates the repair process. So if you have ghrelin, then you make a growth hormone, and then that goes to all your joints, and you actually fix your joints. You fix your muscles, you fix your bones, you even fix your brain. That is so important, and that is a great way to manage stress every day. So every day even if you're driving hard every day, if you stop eating and go to bed with an empty stomach by 10 o'clock, you can still relax as long as you're not overly stressed. See, if you're making a bunch of stress hormones, it doesn't work. So you still have to have time to relax.
Join our 610 Reset Facebook page. It's linked on the bartonwebinar.com, but go to that Facebook page and join our group, and we talk more about it in there. That's really important. So good stuff. All right, number 2, what's another way to manage stress?
So another very important thing for stress, darn, I don't remember his name, at Mayo Clinic. He wrote a book, a whole book on stress-free living. And one of the really important things that he brings out in the book is, if you have an empty mind, if you don't have a place to go, if your mind isn't focused on something, then it's stressed, because it's the automatic reaction of the mind. Your mind is always looking for problems until you focus on something that's not a problem. So if you're focused, if you have somewhere to go, something to do, and if your mind is focused, then you're not going to be looking around, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. And so a mind with nothing to do is a stressed mind. And you decrease your stress by focusing. And so that's where things like yoga and meditation become helpful, is the training to focus. Something that my son found, he said, he was talking about meditation, and he was thinking at first that meditation, he was unsuccessful because his mind kept wandering off on to different things, and he kept having to bring it back and bring it back and bring it back. And then he realized that the meditation is the bringing it back. That is the meditation where you just keep refocusing and refocusing and refocusing, and that's how meditation helps. As far as meditation goes, you can do all kinds of forms of meditation, and there's good ways of doing it, transcendental meditation and yoga and all of those kinds of things. For me, what I found with not just me, but a lot of my patients, that focusing outside of yourself, especially on God, on what is infinite, what is forever, what is bigger than you are, is a higher meditation to have. So prayer, and if you think of prayer as a meditation, as you're focusing on God and you're focusing higher than yourself, and you have something bigger than you, and that is a much more powerful meditation, because it is getting outside of yourself. And that lowers stress a lot more than people who focus inward on themselves and how they feel, what they think, and what they like, and what they want. So meditation is a great way to lower stress.
Yeah. You know, that brings up, you mentioned God, and I just think about, that's one of the ways that I like to de-stress too, is just reading in the Psalms or the Proverbs, anything in Scripture, you know, and just remembering that God is in control, and He has our best interest in mind. So even as we go through trials and we go through stresses, if you can just remember like the promises of God, it's so important to know who He is and know who you are as well, that you are loved by Him, that He created you, He wants what's good for you, and He's given us all that we need to find rest and comfort and peace. And
I've had a couple of patients.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of patients who had sleep problems, and they tried all kinds of medications and various things, and both of them came to the same conclusion. If they would read in the New Testament every night before bed, they slept really well. And that's all it took. There was no drug or anything that worked, but reading in the New Testament worked. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And did you have any more? So we talked about the 610 reset. We talked about, you know, meditation, stress-free living, anything.
Okay.
Number 3?
There's another one, exercise.
Okay.
Exercise to the point of like pushing yourself to where, and it doesn't have to be like running a marathon or, you know, pushing through the wall. All it means is you have to give it your all. And so what we call interval training, where you push as hard as you can for 10 seconds, and then you do something relaxed and light for 30 seconds. And then you push as hard as you can for 10 seconds, and then you do relaxed and light. So if you're doing push-ups, it's like you're doing a lot of them, and then you're just relaxing and moving, and then for 30 seconds, and then 10 seconds of sprinting, and then 30 seconds of walking. That kind of thing you only have to do for 12 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And that releases enough endorphins to lower your stress hormone levels. It really works. I had a woman who was able to get off of heroin just by exercise because she released enough endorphins that she was able to get off all of the opiate drugs that she was on. And it was great.
Yeah, that's that interval training is another word for it is Tabata. And there's a lot of apps or videos. If you just search Tabata, T-A-B-A-T-A, you can find all sorts of good videos. And that's the concept. And the cool thing about this is another video I just recorded was talking about this, how you're actually burning fat beyond your exercise. So it's not like you're only burning fat while you're, doing that, but actually it gets your body into like it continues burning. So you can be burning fat while you're sleeping, just, that like this, that helps boost it. So yeah, that's good stuff. Okay. Do we have a fourth?
Let's see. Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of ways of reducing stress in terms of as you're living your life, being mindful of what you're doing in the moment is very useful as well. And being, when you're eating, just sit down and just eat and focus on your food. And part of that focusing is you're not trying to do 2 things at once or 3 things at once. People who think that they can be multitasking, they don't really multitask. Human beings don't multitask. What we do is we switch back and forth from one thing to another. And that's actually stressful. It's so much better just focus on this is what I'm doing now, and I'll do the other later in a minute or whatever. When I'm done with this, then I'll do that. And having the focus is much less stressful than trying to multitask and doing 2 things at once, switching back and forth.
Yeah, good. So let's talk last thing here. We're going over time than usual this week, but I think, a lot of good discussion here and a lot of helpful tips here. Can you talk about the importance of like human connection and like having conversations, and how do we connect with people, especially if we can't necessarily go have lunch with them or have a coffee with them or whatever?
Oh, that's a great, for stress relief, human connection is really important, and not just connecting like being with somebody in the same room or something, but actually connecting, someone that you're good friends with. You can connect on the phone, you can connect on FaceTime. You don't have to be in the room with somebody, touching somebody. Mm-hmm. One of our friends last week, the doctors weren't taking care of her very well. She was having difficulty breathing. And so I took over and I go, okay, I'm ordering all the tests. So I started ordering all the tests. Well, it turns out that the test showed a lung cancer. And so I had to be the bearer of bad news and tell her that she had this lung cancer, and that's the cause of her problem. And what we can do about it. And because she's been a longtime friend, we were able to connect and to have a discussion on a level that wasn't just a mechanical level of this is what needs to be done, that needs to be done, but really, how do you feel about that, and how can I help? And I got her husband on the phone, and we discussed options and various things, and family matters, and being connected to somebody is kind of more an emotional thing than it is or spiritual than it is the mechanical what are we having for dinner today, and news kind of stuff, which is okay, but connecting with people really helps lower stress levels.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Saunders. This has been very helpful. A lot of great questions and comments and answers here. Several that I wasn't able to get to today, but everybody, if you can join us again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. We'd love to have you hop back on. We will let you know what the next topic is, but love to get your questions. And you can ask more questions in our Facebook group as well. It's a good place to hop in, that 610 reset. Go to bartonwebinar.com. And, another thing too, we're talking about doing more of these in the near future with Dr. Saunders, probably at a different time of the week. We're discussing how that might work, if that might be part of our Home Cures That Work membership, or that we're just having a lot of people giving just good feedback about this, and so we want to be able to help answer more questions and get into some other discussions beyond diabetes as well. So thanks everybody. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Barton Publishing team. And we will see you next week. Hang in there. Have a great day. God bless y'all. I pray for God's peace to surround us all and give us a peace that passes understanding. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.